person is doing their actions, and what type of space they're doing that from. But I think that like me personally, I know that I've held on to the past for so many different reasons, whether it be, meeting my father, or maybe the spankings I got as a child, just because all of those different moments or all of those different memories have such a strong moment behind them. And then in that second brain, not the neocortex, but the the limbic brain, yes. Well, with the emotion being so powerful and so visceral, of course it's going to store that emotion in the cerebellum. You know what I mean? So it's like it's so deep within us. If the emotion behind something is so deep within us, it's going to be a whole lot harder. It can be without the consciousness. It can be a lot harder to forgive because we relive it over and over again, and that
Really installed it.
exactly that chemical that chemical cocktail is just is so potent that forgiveness it could take a lot of effort. So that's why.
Well, I think that what you're saying too is that we keep reliving it over and over again. So therefore, the same emotions come up, the same defenses come up. I remember the time that I truly was forgiven is not because I said I didn't go through any pain. It was horrible pain, and I understood that. But the more I kept going back, I kept thinking, I'm going back and I'm abusing myself over and over and over again every time I bring it up, every time I remember it. So I finally went again, enough is enough. I forgive me, I forgive you, I forgive me for bringing it up 5,000 times when it's been over and you've been dead for 30 years. I forgive me. I forgive me. Yes. Yeah.
And then that space that Dr. Joe was talking about, where you become the observer, is also very important as well. Because if once I take myself out of the situation and become the observer, and remember the principles that you and I just said about we're only doing the best that we can with the consciousness and resources that we have, and hurt people. I do realize that my mom only knew that spanking was the discipline that you could apply when this would happen, and also that my father he may have had a pattern of running away from his problems, or he was scared in some capacity, and I've been scared before, and also I don't know what he and my mother went through. So he might have been angry, and in that moment of passion, he could have left, and then she may have told him not to come back. So it's like once you become that observer, the forgiveness becomes like it's just imminent in the long run.
It's like what Reverend Diane said, we don't know where anybody's coming from. So let's take one more comment, then we're going to break, right, Patrick? Yes.
I've been living in the know yourself and the truth will set you free, and I've been dismantling my ideal self and really being with my real self, really being what am I really feeling, not what I think I should be feeling, but what am I really feeling. And if I can't really get all my bodies aligned in forgiveness, I'm telling myself the truth about that, and then I get really curious about why. And I noticed that there's a whole lot that I can forgive where I really perceive they know not what they do. And that phrase was, but what I realized, I don't know how many people read the book, Scott Peck's book a long time ago, People of the Lie. I have met people who are consciously aware that they are hurting people and consciously choose to hurt. And in me, I found that those were the places where I had a resistance to forgive. And so I did some prayer and I said, okay, God, please show me a way to think about this that handles that for me, because I can't pretend it's not true. I've seen people who actually know. They're not unconscious. They're highly conscious, okay, and intentional. They're capable of other choices and intend. And what came through, and I prayed for a while, and what finally came through was they know not what they do has two levels. Level one is they know not what they do to others. And there are a small percentage, okay, that actually know and do, right, to others. But the second level is they know not what they're doing to themselves and their soul, and that is always true. And I went, whoa, that totally made sense to me, that even if someone was intending harm somewhere, that I can say they know not what they do because they don't know what they're creating in the law of balance, what will in fact come back into their life, because that's how the universe works. So, yeah.
Yeah, but even those people are working with the information that they have.
Yeah.
The ones you're talking about
Yeah.
that seem like they are doing it intentionally, but there's some very hurt people still. They might not even know they're hurt or why they're doing it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Right.
No, I don't think that even as much as we think we know it, we don't know it.
Right.
I mean, as much as we think of the impact of, my forgiveness has always been of lately. I just told Rita the other day, I said I was running and I thought, is it possible to forgive everything? I mean, everything. And I really ran and sat with that, after I was done. I thought, I mean, everything. Not just, like divided up childhood versus everything from what happened today to everything. And I thought, but the first thing I thought is, what the hell would we all talk about? No, I mean, we're so, because I'm thinking, oh, dear God, because we're on a daily basis. There's something we're coming up with to forgive it. And then the last thing that I came up with too, thought of is that old phrase, I can forgive, but I can't forget.
That was my father.
Then you have never forgiven. Because if you're still bringing it up because you can't forget it, then we haven't forgiven yet.
So talk about hurt people. If you come to Spiritual Cinema and watch this
Oh, yeah, that's great.
interview with Holland Taylor, he has a country western singer, a new one that's just up and coming, and he wrote a song called Hurt People, Hurt People. It's like the most amazing piece of music. I think
And
it'll
it
go to
hasn't
the
come
top
out
of
to the public
It
yet.
hasn't come
This
out
will
to
be
the public
first-
yet. I
you'll
think
hear
it's
it
going to be
before.
released soon. Yeah, but
Yeah, you'll hear
you
it.
thought of it. It's like Hurt People, Hurt People. It's the title of his song.
Yeah, you can't possibly be in
All
a
right.
state of love and say, I love myself more than anything, and then me go, and then I hurt you. It's actually impossible. I don't know how it could ever be. Because when you're in a state of vibrational love for self, I love myself so much, it wouldn't even be an idea that I could hurt you for any reason. Okay,
All right,
great.
let's break for about
5 minutes or so.
Yeah, 5 or 10 the most.
We have Melissa putting down that delicious soup that I could smell over there. That's nice. We have Charles running back in. Emma and Jai and my friend Romper Doo. Okay.
So we're just going to go over some thoughts from the chapter and from Dr. Holmes. And I took some of them from this Science of Mind textbook, actually, because we gave you such a short reading that's out. Anyway, I'm going to start on the right because this, I don't know, I just got an even bigger aha about this idea. It is often useful to compare one's brain to a computer, and it's true that yours already has all the hardware you'll need to change yourself and your life, but do you know how best to use that hardware to install new software? And I just got this like tremendous aha that I had this like computer that I get to use, and I haven't even tapped into how much I can use it, right? And I thought we all have where it came from, the Creator, God, but we all came from. We're installed with something that has everything we could ever need, right? I know, it's such a miracle. But do we know how to use it? And Ernest Holmes said, the mental argument is within our own minds. We alone are the arbiters of our fate. Fate becomes not a thing of itself, but the use of the law, and we are to use this law in love and faith and confidence. So it's just like the power is all ours. And we say it every week, but if it really like registers with you, if you can really feel that idea that there's nothing we could not do. And Ernest Holmes also says behind the brain couldn't do anything without us. There has to be a thinker, right? The conscious mind that's behind the brain, that when we're gone, our brain pretty much is gone, right? It doesn't do anything when we're not here in our bodies, right? So there it is. We've got this computer, and now we're going to get to learn how to use it. I mean, how do you feel about that?
In our favor.
I'm just like in awe of myself.
It's crazy. It's crazy. What in the same chapter he said that on this planet our minds are the supercomputer. In fact, he said, that it's
beyond the computer.
Yeah, exactly.
Programmer.
He said that it was this planet's supercomputer. Well, in the same chapter, a little bit after it, but it's fascinating to know that all memories are in there, and that it's just it works so well, and it's still developing to this day, to where now kids are using like technology that much sooner. Like there's 3-year-olds who work iPads like no other. We're still developing, and now it's becoming more and more prevalent because the technology that we use outside of our minds is starting to blend with the things that we're doing on the inside as well. It's amazing.
Science fiction.
And I also think that we need to remember that I was telling Rita that we're getting all involved in how we can utilize this thing called the brain, this thing called everything that we're talking about. But behind that all, we cannot forget God. We cannot forget the intense power. Without that power, none of this that's what's feeding all of this thing that we call the universal flow. And sometimes I think at least I get caught in the mechanism of it. Like if I can just put A to B and C to D, and then I forget the true flow of life, that this is just a gift, so that the source can use this computer and we're only using, like you said, just a small part of it, right, Heather?
Well, that's what I was going to share, is just that I've always been fascinated ever since I read that we're only using such a small portion of our brain. And that's what I love about this, is it mixes the science, psychology, spirituality, and then, how do we really activate the rest of that part that we're not using? And you hear about people that can do amazing things. We're all doing it right now too, but even just things that don't seem possible, like maybe they can levitate something, or, things like that. But if we can truly figure out how to activate that like Jesus or some of these people, then maybe as a society we could actually do some of those things too. And we are now, but.
And I think just to piggyback on that, what's in the way of what you're talking about, I believe, is that what we've been talking about tonight. All that programming, all that non-forgiving, all of that stuff. In order to go to what Amber's talking about, for us all to live that kind of, Heather, I'm sorry, Amber, Heather. That's a good name too. Amber, Heather, Doris.
I know, I always want to call her Jennifer, I don't know.
If I had programmed my computer a little better, that would not have happened. But I do see that whole idea of all of this stuff is in our programming. And that's why, and to be quite honest, we get a virus in there, that we need to get that virus out.
And have a virus, you're right.
You know, there's a virus in there that's stopping and blocking us from what Doris was said. You're going to have so many names before we leave here.
Yesterday was one of those days where everything started to sync up, and everywhere I turned, it was the heart math that came in with heart cohesion, where the brain, well, with the waves going through. And there were classes online that popped up for me. So I took 2 classes, and one of them was Greg Braden, who said that we are wired to thrive. And he talked about what in the last 2 years, they have discovered that the heart has all these little brains inside of it. It's a brain. And it's the first thing that is developed, the very first thing that's developed in all of us is our
Right.
heart. So,
Yeah, go ahead.
so that was just exciting to happen, because I learned a lot and then I applied it to my life, and it took spiritual mind treatment into a hand on the heart and a head into the heart, like a pocket. It just slipped right inside behind the heart, and just that cohesion that happened brought me into a place that I've never communicated from before. And just imagine this, I've been with Candle for 31 years, and we had the best conversation and big healing that couldn't have happened if I hadn't done that. So from this class and from those guys out there with the heart math, I really give a lot of thanks.
Amen. Okay, then one more, and then we're going to go on.
How does Dr. Holmes define consciousness? I'm sure he has a definition for it, doesn't he?
Consciousness is like our awareness. That's the way, simply put, it's our awareness. Mind. It's not our brain. Yeah, it's probably, I mean, I could look it up if you want me to look it up.
There's not a thing that is not consciousness. I mean, everything is consciousness. I mean, that's what we're breathing, living consciousness right now. So, and like I said, if you ever take a test in science of mind, if the answer is there, you want the answer, it's consciousness, because that's what we're taught from day one. But I believe the best way is the awareness.
Mental awareness, consciousness is both objective and subjective. I don't want to go all into this, but just say it's mental awareness. That's what it is. Yeah, I think it's a very long definition. Just think of it as awareness.
Mm.
It's your awareness, and it's how you experience the world, because from that awareness. You know, how you think comes from your consciousness, right?
And we're constantly always saying, what? We need to change the consciousness in order to move into whatever it is. So you're changing your consciousness from one thought, one area to the next, right?
Right, and the way it's being used, like there's also the word mindfulness, right? Mindfulness and consciousness living. is something, it is related to being aware. It's awareness. But the conscious, sometimes the way we use it here is just, it's very different. I think mindfulness and conscious living is something a little bit deeper than just the consciousness of just being here
Well,
or the awareness. I think mindfulness
Mindfulness is a practice.
yeah.
It's something you do with your
Yes.
consciousness.
Yeah, with your consciousness.
Right.
But what I'm saying is the two kind of meld together in order to be, I don't know.
Your consciousness, it's your awareness. It's like, it's your soul. It's the thing you're going to take with you from here. Your consciousness never dies. It's your, well,
Well,
that's
we're
the
using
problem.
it right
We're using
now.
it right now.
But
Right.
that's what you have to become conscious. And
That's
that's
your
what I... No, it's consciousness is the total...
There's a difference, that's where the subjective and the objective consciousness comes in, I think.
Right.
Right.
I don't want to go there, like you said.
Yeah, I don't want to go totally into it because it's a really deep conversation. Will take us off the mark. But
But can we
and
agree that it's
we will
awareness?
study it in practitioner. What?
Can we agree that
That
it's
it's
awareness? Well, it
Well-
is, but as deep. This is one I also want to always put out for us. We can go deep and we can define it and we can do anything, but eventually we're going to have to use it. And that's exactly what I think is really happening here. Is that I don't care what you call it. And because consciousness is mindfulness, it is all of that. The subjective, what's underneath everything, what's underneath it, what's happening. Right now I'm breathing and living consciousness. Right now I'm breathing. We're all examples of that. But I really, and I want to make sure we say at every class, that you can learn Joe and Greg and Ernest and Rita and Patrick and all of the great mystics. and
But if you don't use it,
but if you don't use it, we'll see it here later. We lose it.
well, as practitioners,
And-
we call ourselves consciousness on demand, which means that we have a consciousness that can know the truth on demand because we are aware of how the world works from that highest point of view, not, going down into the depth of a condition. So it's awareness. It's something that you build. It's something that grows. It's something that you can take anywhere, to down below or up above. You can take your consciousness. How are you walking through the world? How are you experiencing the world? What do you see when you look out? That's your consciousness. How do you experience other people? How do you experience anything? It's
And-
coming from your consciousness.
And when you can wake up in the morning, speaking of the great mystics, when you can wake up in the morning and you can say to yourself, I don't know really what's happening with today, but I'm a mystic. I am a mystic. Each and every one of us, we are mystics. But there's a responsibility that comes with being a mystic, because you're going to this place that is so expanded that you have no time for arguing for your limitations. You have no time to be living with anger for a long period. It doesn't mean that it doesn't come up. It just means when it comes up, it goes, wow, the observer, wow, look what happens when I become angry. Wow, that's fabulous. Who would have thought? And then anger has no power, and then you slip right back into your mysticism. And then you're going, and that's what we have to do. But what happens is it's like, I'm really irritated right now, and then all of a sudden now everything starts short-circuiting, the computer's going off, and then it can't plug in. It's the mystic in me. I'm trying to.
See where it is? It's right there. I just don't want you to.
Even through the struggle,
All right, let's go.
I bleed for you.
Go ahead,
No.
Patrick.
Okay,
Go for
good. Oh, speaking of which,
Jesus.
Jesus intimated what? That one may pass from death into life even while in the flesh. How apropos are we? And one may die from one experience and be born into another in this world. We are learning how to do this by mentally letting go of the old and taking hold of the new. We are dying moment to moment to moment and being reborn moment to moment. That's what mysticism is, when we remember that we are constantly being reborn. That this will gain skin that will go over it, because that's how I use everything, by the way. Old you, new you. And then what does Joe say? You can go from thinking about the ideal self you want to become straight to being that new self. That is the key to quantum creating. Now, I was just thinking, because I heard Esther Hicks say somewhere just recently that you can at any moment jump into that the quantum leap, she called it. She said, but it might be a bumpy ride. Because when we were talking before how well that you know how to use the computer, or how savvy are you in that moment, what she was meaning is just that, I'm ready, I'm jumping into the quantum field, but you haven't prepared yourself in consciousness whatsoever. So it's like wearing new clothes or whatever, the new fit to something new. But I just think to myself, this is so perfect that every night we go to sleep and we wake up to a new day. I mean, there's some kind of a message there that has been given us that says we die. We're constantly dying and being reborn. That's why dis-ease confuses me at times. Because to say something's predestined or that the diagnosis is this, because our bodies are constantly scientifically changing on a moment-to-moment basis, constantly reconstructing itself. We hold it in place, in my opinion, and backed by science. We hold it in place when we go, oh my God, look what's happening to me. Look what I've got. Stomach ache, this, that, ow, no. And then we're holding on instead of saying, it's temporary, man. Tomorrow my cells are going to be doing, I got 1 trillion cells working in my favor to change it all if I relax. But the moment I do this, I'm holding on, right? Or emotional or whatever. That was quite an exciting adventure, wasn't it?
Wherever the mental vision is set, there at the end of that vision is either freedom or bondage, joy or grief. If our concept of love and our belief in its beneficent presence is greater than our fear of its opposite, we shall win. Nerve cells that fire together wire together. But the opposite is also true. Nerve cells that no longer wire together no longer fire together. If you don't use it, you lose it. This is the whole secret, right? To rewire ourselves. Is it easy, Melissa? No, not when it's been in there for a long time. But then you can have a mystic experience and all of a sudden get that aha and it clicks in and you're there. And I know that's the truth. And I know it takes practice. And I know, like I said, it could be instantaneous or it could take a long time. But it is going to happen because it has to, because it's scientific. And like Patrick said before, you got to know who's doing the job. It's the spirit. It's the God within us. It's the power that's greater than anything else that's moving and unwiring and rewiring and all of that. So
Well,
I think the first thing you have to know is who you are, because if you don't, if you think you're doing it from your little finite mind, then it is going to be hard.
Or if you think you can figure out the formula and you're going to, I've got this formula. That's why I think it was Brene Brown. I just listened to her again. I haven't mentioned her in a while. She was an old girl. She's an old girlfriend of mine, but we're kind of on a little separation thing there. But Brene, she was talking about that we have to, we don't even know that sometimes it's this part of us that is foreboding joy, and we keep getting stuck in it, but we want to be able to just release it and let it go. Wow. Yeah. Oh, that it's larger too. Dr. Joe says, It's so funny calling him Dr. Joe. It kind of sounds like Mr. Green Jeans or something. Dr. Joe says that
Some people will
we
know who
have to
Mr.
be,
Green Jeans is.
we have to go larger than. We go larger than our troubles. We go larger than what we think we can be. And so when we feel like we're trapped kind of in that thing, we go larger than that because look how expansive we are. There's not a place where spirit, ends and begins, or energy, call it whatever you want. Conscious thought is the starting point of every new creation. Trained thoughts is far more powerful than untrained. Ugh, so true. Since the admission that thought is power gives it added power. So the admission that thought is power gives it added power. This is one of the great secrets of mental science. Conscious thought is the starting point. The subjective law knows only to obey. So for those of you everyone knows what the law, when we say the law, a little bit, yeah. The law is that part of us that can only say yes. That part of us that says, what do you want? And it doesn't have to be like, in the good book. That's why things that you're watching out there and that happen to us, you go, how could that possibly happen? Because the law says yes. It activates whatever is the dominating thing. So that's why our thoughts are so important. That's why trained thought is far more powerful than untrained. So it is for Melissa and everyone else, it is important that we train our minds to say, no, I don't think like that anymore because that doesn't serve me. Yeah, but then you do it again. And you go, oh, but that doesn't serve me. And then you go, but I'm doing it again. But that doesn't serve me. Till you get it so trained that you go, then it goes, oh.
Well, you have to replace it with something
Replace
else.
it, exactly. So, Dr. Joe, in creating a new habit of being ourselves, we are essentially taking conscious control over what had become an unconscious process of being. We have to change our thoughts and feelings, then do something to change our action or behaviors, which in turn produces a new feeling, and then we must memorize that feeling until we move into a state of being, which makes our conversation, Jamie, on the break, that's why there's a lot of do this and do that, then you go eat pizza. Because, it's just like, sometimes it can get overwhelming. That then I got to do this and I got to do that and then I got to think this and I got to think. No. It's just, we just have to become conscious of this moment, this very moment, this place of being. And then we can change it and move into action and then do all of these. These are kind of the steps, right? Yeah.
So besides through meditation and the 3 steps, could this also be done through routines, like new routines? Mm-hmm. So instead of
New patterns.
Yeah, new patterns. Yeah. Right. So it's like instead of waking up and just getting right to brushing my teeth and getting on to my day, I could wake up and read something inspirational like Think and Grow Rich.
Right.
And then
Which will change your whole vibration,
Exactly.
all your energy.
Yeah. So it's just about having that new routine, but being disciplined enough to
Right.
keep doing it over and over and over and over again.
Charles, go ahead.
Well, I just want to say, at this point in our studies, there should not be a morning that we get up, that we don't go to that place first. Because even if we think we don't have time not to go
Right.
to that place first. If we have to get up earlier, whatever we have to do, it doesn't take that long. I mean, yeah, Joe says, spend an hour or whatever. You don't have to spend an hour. Even a few minutes will help you. But if you don't do it, you're going to set off your day and you're going to be spinning through your day. And you know it because you've all experienced it, right? Of not centering yourself before your day starts. Yeah. Go ahead.
Well, for me, one of the things I've noticed about my really tricky, brilliant little logical human brain is that it wants to say everything's different and everything's special and lots of details. But if I get stuck down in that level, then I'm treating all over the place and I don't have a lot of power. So for me, you know, I pay attention to what's going on for me in a week, and I'll say, well, what is my simple antidote thought this week? What is it that I'm really working with? Do you know, if it's judgment or if it's wanting to be in joy? And I literally will come up with the fewest words I can, the simplest thing, because what I know as a former psychologist, it's about repetition. So our mind wants us to get down in the details and make it all different, and then we're not. But if we can come up with one simple antidote thought that is really our edge, whatever, you know, whatever that is, and think it over and over and over again, then we get that new pathway. So that's what I've been playing with, is not letting my mind pull me off. Do you know what I mean? And going to a really high-level antidote thought that I can use in a bunch of situations so that I'm getting a lot of repetition.
I mean, Lori's the perfect example of that, what she said tonight. She's in front of something. I have to remember who I am. I'm part of that. I'm peace of mind. That's what I'm realizing, that I am peace. Oh, thank God for that. And then get out of the way. That took 10 seconds, 5 seconds, whatever it took, 10 seconds to realign. I've done that too. We sometimes want this like incredible, like if I don't have time to do the entire Broadway production of treatment, then I'm not going to do it. Or if I can't do meditation, you know, where I'm practically levitating, then I don't want to do it. But in reality, sometimes it just takes that, and we all know that you know, what it really means is just to go.
Centering.
I remember who I am. Wow. Okay, let's go. It's that. It's that.
True.
Yes, and we imitate the things that we see. So when you guys give these angelic and poetic treatments, we're like, oh, we got to be on. Me personally, I'm like, I got to be on point. I have to sound like William Shakespeare. And
Well, someday when you
know what I
become
mean,
a
Robert
mystic, that will happen for you. But until then,
No, you know what? You always use words that mean something to you. That's all. I use words that mean something to me.
That's a good
You
point.
should never hear a treatment that's the same from anybody. Everybody should be doing treatments differently. There should never be a cookie cutter treatment. And yeah, so angelic, I don't know about that.
But I want to address. You can stay with angelic. No, I want to
Gotta
stay
keep
with the
going.
one thing about when on Sundays when there's an inspiration. Sundays are meant for inspiration, not for teaching. Just remember that. That at least we attempt that. So every once in a while, I'll fly into a little, you know, teach move. But that's okay. A teaching moment is one thing. Teaching on a Sunday is another. That's an inspiration. So that's where you might, you know, get a little bit more where Sundays are like a pulsation of feeling. So there might be a lot more feeling behind that thing. But but in life, we got to get down to biz. You know, and simple. Here's another treatment. You should try this one. I love me. There you go.
Give him the mic. He wants to say
Yeah.
something, and then we're going on.
So I just want to go into the Dr. Joe deal over there about conscious control over what had become an unconscious process of being. So that's a place where I existed. It's an experience that I had for a long, long time. Then I had that change of thought and feeling. And I'm so grateful that those two are always combined, because that's the battery pack. That's the power source. Because I had the thought before, but I never had the feeling combined with the thought. And once those two got together, then, like I said, then do something to change
Your behavior.
action and behavior. That's key. That's key.
Well, that was-
Because just the thinking about it,
That's what I was saying Sunday. You sit on
Nothing
your
happened.
couch of the mind, and
Right,
you just
yeah.
sit there thinking and
Yeah.
feeling it, but you don't put
and
it into
then
action.
it produced a new feeling. And then I had to memorize that feeling till it became a state of being. And, it took the practice, like half hour every morning, just saying these spiritual principles. Not really, I don't know what they mean. I don't know if I'm it, but it was something to gear my mind and my feeling toward, the thought and the feeling toward, that's where I want to be, until it became, that's where I am. And that's where I am.
You're a state of being, then, what he talks about. You moved into a state of being.
There you go.
We can tap the reservoirs of the universal mind through the use of our own thought. We can use this power for the healing of the physical body or for the changing and the control of conditions around us. The reason being that both body and affairs are fluent. They are mind held in form.
Energy.
Yeah, they're energy. That's all they are. They're energy. And they're always changing. There's nothing that is static. If knowledge is for the mind and experience is for the body, then when you apply knowledge and create a new experience, you teach the body what the mind has intellectually learned. Knowledge without experience is merely philosophy. I love that. Experience without knowledge is ignorance. So you got to have them both. Knowledge without experience. Well, if you have knowledge and you don't use it in experience, then it's just a philosophy that you, right? Like it's a story about the compassion that he talked about, right? But if you take the knowledge you learn and use it, then it's not, then experience, okay. And then experience without knowledge, well, we all know that. We go out and have experiences, but we have no knowledge behind what we're doing. We've all been there, I'm sure, at one point in our life. It's called ignorance.
Just a few.
That's like, forgive them for they know
We can
not
leave
what
that
they
angelic
do.
world right now.
So you got to have both. You got to have knowledge and then bring it into experience, right?
Yes, yes.
Right? It's true.
There goes the angel feeling. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Okay, so the three brains.
Here's Rita.
Okay, no. I don't want to get into all the science stuff of it because I'm not a scientist, all right? So I just took just kind of simplified it. Okay. Now we know like the neocortex apparently is this new part of our brain that's just developed, right? That makes us self-conscious and everything and allows us to direct. Thus, when we take what we learn intellectually, the neocortex, and apply it, personalize it, or demonstrate it, we will modify our behavior in some way. So we're thinking, we're directing, we're going to have to modify our behavior in some way. And when we do, we will create a new experience. If we modify our behavior, we'll create a new experience, which will produce a new emotion, right? Because it's going to make us feel something when we have a new experience. If we can repeat, replicate, or experience that action at will, we will move into a state of being, which you were talking about, practicing till it becomes a state of being. And then it goes into the cerebellum or whatever, and which is our subconscious really, and the automatic, right? And what the problem we're having, the challenge is because we have the things that we don't want in the cerebellum that are going into like a loop with us. So that's what we're doing. But because we have this brain that we can use, the frontal part of our brain, we can change it. We just have to take control of it and do it. Use our consciousness and do it. So I just did this, how the three brains work in SMT, a spiritual mind treatment. We use the conscious mind, the neocortex. That's what we're using when we're spiritually treating. We align with our true selves through steps 1 and 2. God is all there is, and I am one with God. Ernest Holmes has stated, this is a conscious endeavor. It has to be a conscious endeavor. It's not a subconscious endeavor. You have to consciously do that alignment. And then using great emotion or feeling, the limbic brain, we realize what is true about us. That's mental rehearsing. A shift in consciousness should take place, which encourages us to begin to live as we have declared or realized. Because what we do with spiritual mind treatment is this shift in consciousness. If repeated enough times, or maybe even in that moment, the subconscious is shifted, and we begin to live as a new self. So I have, for some reason, I have read 288 and Living the Science
Because
of
it
Mind.
goes into it further.
Yeah, it goes further into further. But this is what I like, how I like to bring it both together, because Dr. Joe gives us a way to enter that field, and then we use spiritual mind treatment to really direct it. And we'll get really fast results when we realize how it's all working together, because it's maybe when Ernest Holmes wrote that, he didn't necessarily know all that. I don't know if he did or he didn't. I know he talks a lot about the brain and the Science of Mind text, and he talks a lot about consciousness and the mind and all of that. But, whether he knew it to this extent, I don't know. But it just makes total sense to me that that's what we're doing, and that's why it works, because that is what we're doing, and it's scientific. So he must have known more than we think he knew. But, or it wouldn't be called the Science of Mind. Right. So anyway, so we are masters of this computer that we have because we are the power that created it to begin with. And I really believe that, right? As you began to psychologically project yourself into a potential situation ahead of the actual experience, you began to rewire your neural circuitry to look as though the event had already taken place. So he talks about doing it physically, but then his whole thing, like the meditation that we just did, is doing it on the mental plane. And I said, that's what we do in spiritual mind treatment. We do it in the mental plane first. And so we have to be rewiring circuitry to look at as if it's already happened. That's why we give Thanksgiving in spiritual mind treatment. So this comes with the story of compassion that he wrote. You just conditioned your body to a new mind compassion in that sense. Your mind and body are working together, and you have embodied compassion, and since the word has become flesh. I just put that in there because I like the word has become flesh. I like that. Jesus quote. Because, yeah. So the story about compassion, did everybody read it? Yeah. So it's a great example of this, right? Of the guy, had read a book. We all read books. We're reading now. And then he said, I think I'm going to try this out. Compassion, I really understand it, blah, blah, blah. And then he gets the call from his mother-in-law. His mother-in-law's coming for dinner, and he hates his mother-in-law, and he can't stand being with her. And so he's like, wait a minute, I just said I was going to be compassionate. So he starts to mentally rehearse a different way of approaching his mother-in-law, and then everything shifts. And I just wondered if any of you have found that in your life, not your mother-in-law, but something where you've been able to mentally rehearse something and actually go into the experience and have a wholly different experience. Yes? No? Yeah? All right. Reflect on it. Yeah? Does anybody have some? Yeah, that's the repeating part. The repeating part. It's like the thing, you want to be a presence of peace, right? So now it's just a matter of practicing it, right? And it doesn't mean it's going to be easy, but I think the more you practice it and the more you read about what it's like to be a presence of peace and the more you pray on it, meditate on it, the easier it's going to get. And you're going to be a lot more powerful with your daughter if you're a presence of peace than if you go into the hole with her, right? Like we go into the, what do they call it? The ditch? And they're both going to drown, whatever that saying is. Anyway, so yeah, I think we're good. Okay, so, okay. Yeah. Okay. There's only one. I think this is the last one. You know your own mind. Train yourself to think what you wish to think, Ernest Holmes says. Be what you wish to be. Feel what you wish to feel, and place no limit on principle. If you have a vague, subtle, unconscious fear, be quiet and ask yourself, who am I? What am I? Who is speaking? What is my life? In this manner, think right back to principle until your thought becomes perfectly clear again. So yeah, so when these things come up, who am I? I'm the power and presence of God. Right? What am I? I'm infinite intelligence. I'm love. I'm all of that. Who's speaking? God speaking. And then what is my life? It's a reflection of being God, of being this power. You're just thinking constantly back into principle. And that's exactly what Joe is saying. The same thing. You got to keep doing it. You can't think one way and feel another and expect anything in your life to change. That's why we can't change. Because we're thinking one thing and we're feeling another. And that's why the feeling is so important. Change your state of being and change your reality. I am asking you to take control and to invert the process. Rather than waiting for an occasion to cause you to feel a certain way, create the feeling ahead of an experience in the physical realm. This is the hardest thing, right? It doesn't have to be, but no, right? It's easy. But for some people, it might be. Not for this group. We are the master mystics.
The angelic
the M&Ms.
people.
We are the M&Ms. All right. Okay. We better keep going. Patrick wants to talk about the gap.
Well, because this chapter, to me, I finally felt like I got to know Joe. He wasn't Dr. Really Joe anymore. He became Joe. And he just really let us know that no matter how intense his stuff is, that he went through this process that we're talking about. And so he talked about that gap. And this is the top one that he was talking about, the identity, how we appear, the identity we project to the outer environment, who I want you to think I am, the facade, and the ideal for the world. Now, what's interesting about reading this chapter, I read it twice because I was so enthralled with it, because it really made me think about that part of us that thinks we really know what's going on and we're going to get it all down. And in reality, it's like I went, oh my God. Who am I really? So it didn't get me like frustrated, it just got me like more like shock and awe, kind of, oh wow. How I feel, who I really am, how I am on the inside, my ideal for self. And so I feel the authenticness of Patrick, but then I have to also know, when does this come into play? And that really, this part I'm focused on a lot, about vulnerability, authentic, being as much as I can real, and that's a big thing for me. It's so important. But then I started looking at that, and I went, that's something to really look at, because every time we walk into any situation, if you're at work, you go, it's like I'm at work now, so I become work. And then you become this, I become that. And I just thought, it doesn't mean anything wrong or right. It just means take a look. And I think that this is what I think that a lot of times people talk about. I'm afraid you're going to think I'm a fraud, or you start to succeed and people think I'm an imposter. I think it's because we have all of these different sides, and it's really okay. We have many personalities that we use in order to grow. But the most important thing is when you're alone in the car, when I'm alone in the car, or I'm alone with Patrick, or I'm out on the path, who am I? Who am I? And, that's a question we've been asking since the beginning of time. Who am I? But this, for some reason, how we appear, really made me question and say, is it important to you, Patrick, how you appear? And the people that change things, like I've done that quote twice by Jobs on Sunday. It takes really daringness to walk out and say, I don't believe that. I don't feel like sharing this story, and I really don't, because I'm still processing it. But I behaved the other day in a way that when I was done, it wasn't bad. I just happened to talk to a stranger, and he was kind of doing a guy thing. And I said, I don't know why I'm pointing at you, Charles. I'm sorry. I was kind of doing a guy thing, but this isn't what it. And like I said, because I'm still processing it, but I kind of like agreed or acted in a way that I walked away and I went, who the hell was that? Kind of like, yeah, man, I know what you mean. I'm like, what the hell? Patrick, where did that come from? You know what I mean? Because you're like, Patrick, and then somebody says something, and then you go, who would? Yeah, I know what you mean, man. I'm thinking, well, first of all, it wasn't even your voice. Second of all, what was that? Oh, you were guying it with him instead of just being Patrick with the guy. And it was so foreign to me that I went home and I was just like, I don't know what in the hell happened, because I couldn't believe I was acting like that. And you know what I mean? And I just went, I don't know. It was weird. It's still weird. That's why I can't talk about it that much, because I'm trying to process.
Process it first, dear. Okay.
I did a guy thing. I don't understand. Anyway, as an identity, we become attached to our external world by identifying with everyone and everything in order to remind us how we want to project ourselves in the world. How we appear becomes the facade of the personality, which relies on the external to remember who it is as a somebody. Lots of words, but I love this one. How we appear becomes the facade of the personality, which relies on the external to remember who it is as a somebody. So we don't want to become the nobody, the no thing, right? So you become this. And just, I'm still processing, but I got to tell you about the guy thing, one thing. Here's what
Process it,
happened. No,
dear.
here's what happened with that, because I just got the hit when I was. It made me also understand how guys, women get into trouble because they want to be a part of the tribe enough that they either don't say anything or they just move on. Yeah, I know what you mean, man. And you don't know that's not who you are. And so, yeah.
I had an aha on this, and I've really been practicing with it. What I noticed is that when I get into that place, it's because I've gone back into a subconscious pattern where I think a person, a situation, an event is my source and my supply. Okay, so I'm in separation. Now I'm trying to manipulate and control things to get something I want, right, from the outside world. And so for me, I just cut it. Like if I have an experience and I'm like, wow, I didn't get the response I wanted, I come in and I'm like, whoa, wait, God is my source and my supply. Okay, and I end up on the right side every time I remind myself about that.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, it's great that we're all in here and we're all conscious about what we're learning, right? But out there, you have to deal with people who are not. And sometimes we fall into this more so than we'd like. And so it is important that we are conscious and that we have something to hold on to remind us of who we are. But at the same time, it happens that you keep falling into it, and then you have to come back and remember who you are. But it's not always knowing who I am. I fall into that because I live in different different people, different organizations, different cliques, different whatevers that I find out there, different career areas. And
Won't it be great when we could just show up with who we are and we not care? I know, and
Absolutely.
won't it? Like, it'll be so amazing when we get to that point that we just show up as who we are and we say our truth and we do it with love and compassion, but we are our true selves.
Well,
I don't know.
No, it can
Well,
be.
with some people.
It can be, but it's the idea of, and I caught the word that Emma said, but then we have to deal with the outside. I hear it a lot. But then we have to deal with the real world we were talking about on break. No, actually we don't. Actually we do not. Not in the way we're talking about it tonight. Yes, every situation, and I love the different environments that are out there that we walk in and out of. I love it. But there's a difference between being able to go into the environment as who you truly are, and I've done it, in an environment that either something that I am good at and I'm okay, but that's not exactly who I am, and it's not that I'm behaving so much differently, it's just that there's a different energy that I'm moving in and out of. That's okay, as long as I still know who I am. The Patrick that took those 3 minutes to be there, there's no, first of all, there's no guilt. I don't feel any bad. I feel more curiosity about it because so, and I don't even know if it's a falling thing, but it is something, but that wasn't Patrick. That was Patrick acting out a role for somebody else to be a part of that moment. So you know what I'm trying to say? That's a big difference.
You went unconscious for a moment.
I did. I went.
It can
flew-
happen.
Yeah. And
right?
so, but
But-
but it's not feeling bad about it, or that we are on different levels.
But I'm going to tell you that, like, for certain situations, like when you're going out into the world, whether it's in a job where you know that people don't think the same way, you can treat. When you get on the phone with
yes.
customer service, you can treat before you get on that phone. You can treat that the right person is going to be on that other end that is going, right? I do it. That's what I do. When I know I'm going to be in a situation, like I have to deal with insurance company or, health insurance, it's time to re-enroll and they're giving, I don't know, whatever. Something where, where it could be a really confusing situation and you could get a person on the phone, but you can treat, and I'm telling you it works. Because it puts you in a higher state of consciousness, and then you're just attracting the right person to be on the other end. And then you don't have to change anybody. You can, I mean, I've worked in all kinds of jobs. I didn't always know as much as I know now, and I know what you're talking about. But now I go, wow, it would be a whole different person now if I was going out. I'm tempted to just go audition for something here. I don't want it, but just to see what it will feel like when I don't stand up there going like this because I'm so nervous, or
right.
because I'm trying to so I probably will, just to bring the science of mine back there. And watch, you'll find out. I'll get the leading role. No. Well,
Yeah.
the church could make a lot of money because I tithe 10%. Okay, go ahead.
So I think there is a big difference too, that this is the difference. When you're in a conversation, you don't have to go to a different environment, just go to your friends when you're in a discussion. We don't have to go into we don't have to go that far. We're acting like, I'm going to go into an environment I'm just not even dealing with. No, just hang out with your friends. And so to dare to say in the moment, actually, I don't believe that. First of all, it stops the whole conversation. Oh, when somebody's saying, basically, you're in the conversation, everybody's, I'm going to complain more about mine than yours, and then you're sitting there, and then you would just go, uh-huh. But instead of jumping in for a minute, you just say to yourself, oh, wow, that's an interesting point of view. I don't believe that. Well, that does put and I know everybody wants to defend it, but we don't have time because it's 8:29. But no, you're fine but I'm just saying that I don't want, this isn't to defend it because it's the truth. Because there's no way any of you who are sitting here are going to tell me that you go day after day and nobody bitches. I mean, there's not, and if you do, then hallelujah, hallelujah. But you do not have to deal with it. You do not. You don't have to change them and go into a big thing about, you don't need to think like that, man. No, you just, that's funny. I don't believe that. Huh? I know, that was actually an imitation.
Okay, keep moving,
so,
moving. Oh.
Roseanne, is it deep and quick?
I love this whole concept of healing the gap. I really got it. And I know that it's not about making the gap disappear. It's about just getting it a little closer and closer. And as years go by, you feel that. And it reminded me so much of, if you've ever been to London and been in the tube, the subway system, there's a recorded voice, and she says, mind the gap, mind the gap. When you're getting on the subway, it's mind the gap. And I thought, I'm going to be minding the gap.
It's great.
Real
Mind
quick,
the gap.
mister. No? You done? Really? Okay. Oops. Okay. Questions about it. Is this who I really am? Is this who I really want to be? But it's so much easier to ignore those questions than to answer them, which is very true. We use everything in the external world to distract us from how we really feel inside. I think we don't need to say any more on that. If you know what I mean. No, just kidding. Dr. Joe, I had to show up being, what everyone expected me to be based on how I appeared in the movie, What the Bleep. You remember that part of it? I started believing I was somebody else, and I needed the world to remind me who I thought I was. We've all been there, I would imagine. I was actually living two different lives. No longer did I want to be trapped by that. In the process of my meditation practice, I was intentionally dismantling my old identity and breaking the habit of being myself. That's
Took
what
6
we're
months off
talking
from
about.
work.
That's what we're taught. That's the whole part of the gap. We're just trying, I mean, you're not even trying. We're actually living what we were talking about tonight, different lives. You go to work and you're somebody. Then you go over here and you're somebody. You're with your husband, or as Brene Brown, second reference, she talks about the armor that you put on during the day, and there's so much armor that it's harder to take it off. So you just leave it on again. Okay.
She's picking Cindy up. Okay.
More?
You don't need to go through it.
Just drive to the.
It's
Yeah,
in
we
the
already
book.
did the same question. There you go.
We're up
Homework.
to the homework. Okay. So you're going to read chapter 8. And in Living Science of Mind,
Demystifying the mystical.
you're going to read, that's going to be the last chapter we read in this book, and we will continue this course at a different time doing the meditation practices. But in Living the Science of Mind, you're going to read 289 to 295, because it's all about spiritual mind treatment. So, and then I have a handout, because
Charles will pass it.
we want to see
Thanks,
where
Charles.
your faith and your conviction is, because this course is going to be over, and what are you going to do after it's over? So just read this, and we're going to just kind of evaluate that, and then work on your final project. And we want to know if there's anybody that would like to go next week with their final project.
5 minutes.
It can't be more than 5 minutes, and we are going
This
to
time
time you.
we learned by power of decision that we're going to time you, because
But
some
if
people
somebody would
really
like,
worked
if
hard
there's
to be
people
at
that
5,
would
and there
like
was
to
people
go next week,
you know.
we'd be happy to take 3 or 4 or 5 people to go next week.
So we
and-
can break off.
So we
the,
can break up the evening.
Oh, good. So
Oh, could you be ready to do something next week?
you will be ready.
All right, so so
Charles.
Heather, Charles,
Right
you're going to
down.
do it next week? Okay.
Anyone else? Yes, you can let us know.
All right, I would love to have 3 or 4 or 5 people.
5 minutes, you guys. That's
I
all.
don't have anything to write this down with. Heather, Charles, will you
Heather,
remember?
bye. Heather, Charles.
Please don't leave before we pray out. You have to go. All right, okay. Heather, Charles, who else?
Chia.
Chia, okay. 5 minutes, we are going to time you. Heather,
Yeah.
Charles, Chia,
Okay.
and Melissa. And maybe Charles. Oh, no, we
No,
said
Charles
Charles.
is.
Heather, Charles.
Yeah.
Okay, 4, that'll help.
That'll help, because we don't want to pile it all on the last night, because then everybody.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to stay within 5 minutes. We remember what happened to Power Decision. It was horrible. And we were here like
And the only
for-
reason that it's horrible, not that it
Not
was
that we didn't
bad,
love what you
it's
did,
just that
but it was-
everybody really honored the 5, and then the ones that didn't, they did 15.
And we never,
Yeah.
we couldn't have. Okay.
Okay, so
Oh,
you
thank
guys ready?
Melissa. All right, treat out.
Oh, once again. No, I know what you're saying. No, okay. You guys are gonna. Everything in this class, by the way, is confidential. So here. So let us just settle into this beautiful, peaceful moment that I call now. This beautiful moment that is just infused with spirit, infused with infinite intelligence, but most of all is infused with love, as love. I know that is who I am. I know that is who each and every one of us is. And though we are individualized, yes, we are connected at all times. So I know that everything that has occurred tonight was divine timing. That everything that was heard with a place of absolute knowing. Everything that was said was meant to be said and to listen to, and all of the information, all of the Dr. Joe, Ernest Holmes, all those wonderful mystics, Rita and Patrick, all of it has been for this divine purpose of just knowing self even more than we did before we walked in those doors. So I just say thank you for the courage, for the wonderful love that has been shown here tonight, the incredible intelligence that has been let loose tonight. And what I know for each and every one of us is that as we leave here, we leave as the mystics. We leave as the remembrance of who each and every one of us is in every moment. And that is God, that is love. And all that is required, all that has ever been required, is to just remember. remember who we are. And with that, I just know that we are safe, we are sound, we are loved. We are here. And with that, I say thank you. We release it as together we say. And so it is.